before this video starts, I'd just like to ask if you'd subscribe to this channel if you haven't already, because we will be covering the general election from a totally different perspective from what you get from the mainstream media. We'll be talking about the candidates who are taking on Labour and the Tories and pushing them all the way. So please subscribe and get updates. Claudia Webbe, CPS, apologises over acid threat inaccuracy. The independent assessor of complaints has ruled that the Crown Prosecution Service were at fault for circulating a fake allegation about you. And that fake allegation has been extremely damaging to your reputation and also has caused lots of trolling and online abuse for you. Could you tell us just how bad that's been for you, that allegation was allowed to spread in this way?
I mean, yes, and thank you, first of all, for having me on your show. This has been absolutely horrendous, as you can imagine. It has been a complete nightmare from start to finish. And the fact that it's been ongoing for so long is in part because of the way in which the CPS, the Crown Prosecution Service, sought to prosecute this case, charging me with the most heinous of allegations, and actually, allowing that to perpetuate when it wasn't even part of any original charge in the first place. To claim this notion of acid, to allow that to spread and play out, when had this been a charge in the first place, I would have been allowed to have a jury trial. Instead, it was a charge at the lowest level of a magistrate's court that denied me the opportunity of a jury trial, a trial amongst one's peers, to see the evidence, hear the evidence, and come to a judgment. I didn't get that opportunity because the Crown Prosecution Service knew clearly what it was doing and how it was going to prosecute this case and how much it was going to spend. There was no amount or limit to the amount of money they were prepared to spend on this case to try to secure a conviction of me. It was a deep miscarriage of justice, in my view. And, to allow the issue of the acid claim to play out in the way that they did, to put it as a press release in the first place on their public platform, to spread that to the media in the first place, they clearly set about an agenda which was to cause me maximum harm and damage. And I believe that they were politically driven in doing so. So it's been horrendous. And of course, people have repeated the claim, endlessly repeated the claim, and caused me great harm, both in terms of threats to my life, literally threats to my life, and indeed the kind of abuse that I get verbally, by phone, and the fact that I have to watch over my back all the time, and the fact of the online trolling, which has been endless, both racist, misogynistic, sexist in its intent, and of course, to boot, they have a claim of acid to throw in all the time as well. It has been a nightmare, a living hell. It has been like slow death, as I described to the prosecutor. And in fact, it took, well, when I say the prosecutor, I mean the assessor. In fact, it took me having to go to an independent assessor to get the Crown Prosecution Service to change course, at least in terms of the way that they falsely publicized this case. So it's the fact that took the effort of an assessor to come in and find against the Crown Prosecution Service is appalling. And then the Crown Prosecution Service to claim that it was merely, their reasoning was terrible, and the offer of £100 derisory, considering what I've been through. It's been a nightmare.
It's horrific. I don't really know what to say after what you've just described. I mean, you talk about the effect on your health as well. I mean, can you tell us a bit about that?
Well, it's, you know, this has been a living danger for all this time, a living nightmare all this time. It's been horrendous levels of stress and anxiety, a horrendous effect on my mental health. It's been an enormous weight
I mean,
to
so
have to
you're
carry.
constantly worried about what someone's might be doing. So you're like you must be able to find it hard to sleep. You probably can't. You're anxious about. So, I mean, everyone would feel that tension, and to be so publicly put into that situation. That I just the other thing that I find appalling is this £100 thing. Can you tell us what that they're giving compensation of £100? What does that mean? Is it really? Is that all that you're being offered for all that they did?
Well, quite. That is all that they are offering for all that they did. It's the criminal justice system is clearly failed in my case. And what they're saying that this is unprecedented. Why is it unprecedented? Because I'm a defendant. They're saying that this is, you know, the fact that the offer was made in the first place is an unprecedented move. But the reality is we have a criminal justice system that we cannot trust. We cannot trust them to actually go after people that are committing crimes. But what they're doing is going after, in my case, somebody that they are pursuing politically, and somebody who's on the left. And it was the fact that the Crown Prosecution Service chose to prosecute the case in this way, chose to manipulate the situation in this way, is horrendous. How can we indeed trust them? The fact is that amongst judges, less than 1% of the judiciary is black. So even before you even begin as a black defendant, you are up against it. And as a black female defendant in the magistrates' court, I was the only, apart from the audience, I was the only black person in that court. So, you know, we're talking about a system that is up against you. So I'm having to address a situation which is unfair from the outset. So the final, to hear that the independent assessor had found in my favor, and then to find that the offer was only £100, and that's all that I could claim, is appalling, and it just shows the heart and the level of this criminal justice system, how much it is stacked up against black defendants in particular, and black women more so. It's a horrendous situation, and of course, yes, it had all of this time, a horrendous impact on my health and well-being, and my levels of stress and anxiety. And of course, I don't think they expected me to be here today, but I'm still here today, and I will keep going on. And actually, the reason why I'm able to have this level of ability to stand up today is because, in fact, of the left and the left media. You will note that the mainstream media has barely reported this case. But what we have is an independent left media that still exists, and that they've been able to report on this case, I think, is to their credit. And I think that, and just, you know, this showing itself as well as providing an alternative left platform is important. But, you know, I've had, you know, the score bots, for example, that have been in the court all the way through. That was important because it meant that the truth could be heard as far as it was possible. And indeed, the Morning Star that had reported the case was able to report it fairly. Apart from that, everybody took what the Crown Prosecution Service distributed unfairly in its press release as a matter of fact. And indeed, the Crown Prosecution Service was lying, and it was deliberately lying. And it knew that it was lying because I went to it several times and asked it to correct the record, and it refused to do so. 3 times I had to go to the Crown Prosecution Service to get them to correct their record before the independent assessor came in and actually had to rule against them.
Wow. And you are speaking out and a lot on Gaza as well. We've seen you at the demos, the national demos, and you're still doing a lot of work in your constituency in Leicester. Can you tell us? I mean, I don't want to push you on anything here, but have you got any plans maybe to stand again in the general election?
Well, one of the things about being born in Leicester means that I come from a background and a history of never giving up, of resilience and sheer tenacity to keep going. And I, wonder where I get sometimes my strength from. And I can only put it down to having been born, grew up in Leicester, having gone through an era of bare physical abuse in the days when racism was rife and on the streets, where going to school was a literal nightmare. You would get beaten up, your clothes ripped off your back just for going to school. That was the era in which I grew up. We've come through all of that, and we've got a Leicester which is significantly changed. I grew up witnessing the imperial typewriter factory women who defied even their unions to come out and strike through unfair pay when they discovered that their white counterparts were being paid better than them. And as Asian women, they sought to protest. I witnessed that as a child. I've come through that level of resilience, and therefore I'm not about to give up yet, and I'm not about to give up now. I give thanks, of course, to all of my family in Leicester that have, stood and supported me. I come from a very small community of people from Nevis, St. Kitts and Nevis. I come from Nevis. My parents are Nevisian. We're a very small community of 11,000 people at any one time on the island. So I'm a daughter of the Windrush generation. I've come through significant struggles in that regard, and therefore that is the history of my resilience and background. Very, I come from a humble background. It's very, whilst it was very embarrassing for me that I went through this court case, and my community felt it deeply, and my family felt it deeply, and actually the people of Nevis felt it because we're a small community. The reality is, were it not for, I guess, the resilience that I had, I'm sure I wouldn't be standing here. We come through these struggles, we keep going, and we just keep going. And I will be doing the same. I will be keep on going, and no matter what they continue to throw at me, and they're throwing a lot at me. I'm getting a huge amount thrown at me, but I will keep going, and I have the support. I believe of the community of Leicester. I'm still making those soundings, but everybody is telling me to run, and they're telling me to stand, and therefore, as an independent, I will, be pursuing that agenda to continue to stand for the people of Leicester East. They are my priority. They provide my strength, and I will keep being passionate about their causes and about the issues that affect them. And those issues are huge when we think about the levels of poverty that people are going through. A poverty that I thought by now, after all these years, because I grew up in poverty and I know what it's like, but I thought that after all these years that we would see the back of poverty, but not for my community. Where people are suffering an income level of 10,000 less than the national average, 6,000 less than even the neighboring Leicester South. It is a huge level of income deprivation, all borne out by the garment industry and the culture that creates. of course, in terms of the way in which people are paid, poverty wages, 0-hour contracts, and all under the guise and in plain sight of the establishment. They say that all of this is an open secret in Leicester. Well, it should be an open secret no more. And certainly since I've been in Parliament, I've tried to expose the level of injustice that people in Leicester East are going through. And I will continue to do so. I will continue to be passionate and continue to raise their causes whenever and wherever. And if I'm successful in a general election, whenever that comes, then I will continue to pursue with passion the issues that matter for the people of Leicester East.